Hi, Leo, Sun and Rising. Welcome to your June 2022 Astro Update. It's Rena here. So, June is a great month, especially towards the end of the month, because all the personal plans will be direct, and that gives a sense of momentum to launch new projects and also just to do your daily thing and feel a greater sense of momentum. Because with the Mercury retrograde that we're currently under as I record this in May, we and then we're going to have other periods in the year where this is going on. This is really going to be a great thing to take advantage of, and it's also coming around the same time as the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, which is also a power period. So there's a lot of change in the air and a lot of cooperative energy to kind of harness. So this is really cool. And of course, some of you will have your birthday in late July, like a month later, and that's during this portal as well, going into August. Like pretty much, I would say all of your solar return period, late July to late August, is going to be good for that as well. So it's going to extend from late June to late August. I don't know exactly when in August. And I think that the reason it ends is because Mars goes into its shadow period. That's what I'm thinking, because I know Mars is going to retrograde in late October, I believe. So I still think that you can do things regardless. I wouldn't get too in the weeds about that kind of thing, but it's always fun to point out the times when it really is on point, and that is going to happen in June. And it feels to me like I've been waiting and waiting for this because being in the middle of a Mercury retrograde doesn't feel right for moving forward, as far as I'm concerned. And I'd rather kind of take a step back and look at where I've been. And I am sure a lot of you feel the same way. So on the 3rd of June, Mercury does turn direct at 28 degrees of Taurus, and Taurus is another fixed sign, and that is your 10th house of career. So during this time, as Mercury has been transiting both your 11th house and then back to your 10th house, Leo people can feel this sense of how your goals really connect with your career. Goals are not just career. Some goals are where you want to live, what kind of weather do you want, what kind of person do you want to be with. All of those things are also goals. They have nothing to do with career, and they're important too. So you may have the perfect job, but it's not the perfect place to live. And so it's feeling kind of blah, or you don't have the kind of partner that you really feel is compatible with you at this time. Maybe at one time the person was more your speed, but now it's not true anymore. These kinds of things are legitimate to think about and to be concerned about. So don't feel bad about changing your mind. And that's what Mercury retrograde can be all about, is about changing your mind or rethinking something. So Mercury goes direct on the 3rd, comes out of its shadow on I would say about the 18th of June. Okay. So for the first 3 weeks, there still is integration happening of all the things that may have changed. Saturn goes retrograde on the 4th at 25 degrees of Aquarius, so your opposite sign and house, and this is a house of committed partnership. Now, Saturn is allowed to be retrograde when we're having this green light portal towards the end of the month because Saturn is not a personal planet. So it doesn't tend to affect us personally except through the house that it's transiting. But that can be legitimate. And certainly, since Saturn has been in your seventh house, Leo, you may feel that if your relationship is a little bit funky, that you're being tested in some way. And maybe recently you have been kind of letting go of some of those, that need for more discipline in this area, because for some of you, you may end up going into marital counseling if you haven't already. And when I say marriage with the seventh house, I'm also talking about live-in situations, anything that is a serious committed relationship. And another thing too is maybe if you were planning on getting married, there was a lull in the action. You might have had second thoughts, and you weren't sure that you wanted to commit, and now you are more sure. Because Saturn, the seventh house, doesn't have to be bad. It could be actually having that commitment. Sometimes people fall in love, but it scares them. Have you ever watched some kind of like a newscast or something where, or I used to see that when I used to watch those talk shows like Maury and stuff like that back in the day. And they would say, and he would introduce the couple and he'd say, and they have like 3 kids and they're engaged. And it's like, what? So you would rather bring other life into this world, but you're afraid to get married. Okay. And if you don't want to get married, that's a totally different subject matter. But I mean, they have to say, oh, this is my fiance and these are our 3 kids. I've always thought that was like really kind of lame. I mean, I'm sorry if anybody out there is in that situation. I don't mean to be insulting or anything like that. But what I mean is that it doesn't make sense to me. I think that, committing to children is a lot more of an intense kind of a thing than to get married. If you want to get married at all, that is, so it just seems, but it just shows you that sometimes our emotional nature is very sensitive about certain issues. Like maybe if you're meant to be a parent, you have no fears about bringing children into the world, but committing yourself to somebody else can feel like you're putting your heart out there to possibly get trampled on. Maybe you were traumatized when your parents got divorced. Some of us, when our parents got divorced, we breathed a sigh of relief. But for some people, it was very traumatic. And so I can see in that case why somebody might do that. But it's still always kind of, you know, is confusing to me sometimes when I see that. So, Mercury goes back into Gemini on the 13th. So you're getting that kind of hint that Mercury is coming back online to the fullest extent because it only retrograded at 4 degrees of Gemini. And so that means that you're really formulating the kind of new beginnings and new dreams that you have wanted, because on the 30th of May there will be a new moon in Gemini, and I think about 9 degrees of Gemini, so very close to the degree that it retrograded at 4 degrees. And this can be maybe this is the time when you will start to feel that new moon energy rather than when Mercury was retrograde. On the 14th, there is a full moon at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. So, uh, fellow fire energy Leo, this is your house, the fifth house. A full moon here can make you aware of someone that you care about. So, here's an example. Let's say that you have been going into marital therapy and marriage therapy and it doesn't seem to be working. So you say, look, I'm just going to let this go for the summer and just keep living my life. Maybe you're separated from your partner. And then you meet someone or you come in contact with that person again. And, I was going to say reunite with that person, but I'm not sure that it would be something that, intense. It might just be something where you're talking over the phone or something like that, but that you realize this person was who you loved all along, and maybe you got married in a rebound situation because you couldn't be with the one that you really loved, and now you can. So things like that. It's kind of a realization about love with the full moon there. On the 21st, there is the sun going into Cancer. That's a solstice vibe. And Cancer is the sign right before you, Leo. So that's the 12th house. That's a hibernation month before your debut, before the sun goes into your sign. You may feel like you want to rest more and spend more time alone. You may think that it's uncharacteristic for yourself, but this happens every year. On the 28th, on the 22nd, Venus goes back into Gemini, or Venus goes into Gemini. So Venus and Mercury are both in that 11th house. The 11th house is a house of gains, so there might be some financial gain in this area of what the second house represents. I mean, what the 10th house represents of career. So career gains might be the thing that is going on. And new moon at 7 degrees of Cancer on the 28th is in that 12th house. And this is good for turning over a new leaf as it applies to spiritual matters. Maybe you've been kind of being a little bit too into the material and you need to get more spiritualized. On the same day, Neptune goes retrograde at 25 degrees of Pisces. So there's your spirituality. And for you, this happens to be the 8th house, which is a very mysterious place. This is Scorpio's domain, and you have it in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces here. So this has already been an influence for you in the last 10 years, where you have been able to perhaps explore metaphysical concepts and astrology, the tarot, that kind of thing. Also, any kind of like if you are in the healthcare field, you may have been attracted to hospice, being like a hospice nurse, because 8th house is a house of death. And well, I could say too, and I actually met somebody, I worked with somebody who was studying to be a mortician. And I thought that was pretty interesting, to be honest with you. I didn't realize, you had to go to school for that. I think the person wanted to run a funeral home or something like that, which is really wild. To be interesting to see what a person's chart is who has that. But it's kind of like, death is a business. I hate to be crass, but let's face it. Whether you're digging ditches or graves, or whether you are working as an embalmer or a funeral director, there's never going to be, that's never going to go out of style, because death is inevitable. So, and this can also be something to do with a will or money. If you are happening to get a divorce, and there is some talk about the money of your partner, or just in any case, even if you are coupled, perhaps there has been some kind of a deception about another person's money that will come up for you, because when Neptune goes retrograde, these matters can come to you, and sometimes it's because you have been in denial over it, but sometimes the deception was keeping you from knowing the truth. And so there could be some kind of situation that arises in the next few months with Neptune being retrograde that is a reality check about a partner's money, for instance. Maybe you were operating under some kind of false belief, or an inheritance over a false belief, and then it's kind of like, oh wow, I didn't know that. And it's important because for some reason you may even have like a spiritual attitude. So an example would be if your partner says, I can't find work, I'm sending out resumes, and then you take over their debts, and you're paying all their bills, as well as paying, everything else. And then you find out that they have been gambling, and they're trying to cover for that. And it can be very disillusioning, because you realize that there are a lot of problems here. Or if your partner has been spending, taking money out of the joint account for something, and you didn't know about it. And it's important that you do know. So even if it's a shock to the system, it still is important, so that you have a handle on these things. And so I think that's the last thing of this month I want to talk about. So that's what I have for you, Leo. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.